On the day Alex's first love got engaged, he stood in the pouring rain and proposed to me. At that moment, his face was full of despair, and I didn't hesitate to reach out and pull him up. But Alex regretted it. After we got married, he told me that he didn't love me but wouldn't abandon me either. He even said that I was a stain on his life that he could never erase. I finally decided to give up on this hopeless marriage. But Alex's eyes reddened, and he held me tightly, sobbing, "Emily, I won't let you go. Even if we die, you'll die by my side." When I walked into Alex's office carrying a thermos, the new security guard stopped me. He didn't know me and didn't believe my identity. Left with no choice, I reluctantly dialed Alex's number. It only rang twice before it was hung up. Under the suspicious gaze of the security guard, my face flushed as I sent a message. As expected, Alex didn't reply either. It wasn't until half an hour later that the security guard received the order to let me through. "Miss Emily, you can go up now," he said in a professional tone, tinged with a strong sense of gossip. I muttered a quiet thanks and hurried into the elevator. Behind me, I could hear the guard murmuring, "Is she really the president's wife? President Alex sure has poor taste." There's no comparison. In Alex's office, I saw a stunning woman, and finally understood what the guard meant. Compared to the young girl in the old photo I'd once seen in Alex's wallet, she had shed her youthful innocence and become more mature and alluring. Yet, that delicate face was now cold and frosty. She stood next to Alex, unceremoniously asking, "Alex, why didn't I know you were so petty? Will you help me or not? Victoria, is this how you ask for favors?" Alex glanced up calmly, his tone carrying a barely noticeable indulgence. My heart clenched for a moment, and I almost dropped the thermos in my hand. The next second, Alex's gaze shifted to me. "Is that pigeon soup today?" I nodded stiffly and handed him the soup. "Drink it while it's hot." But a slender, pale hand grabbed the thermos before Alex could. I watched in disbelief as Victoria tilted her head back and drank it all. "Alex, the soup was delicious. Thanks for the treat." Victoria gracefully pulled a napkin from the table, her rose-red nails lightly brushing against Alex's white shirt. "And for the record, Alex, Victoria, never ask for favors." Then, with a raised brow, she turned and left, radiating pride the entire time. From beginning to end, Victoria didn't even glance at me. I stood there, frozen, not missing the gentle look in Alex's eyes as he watched her leave. "Alex, who is that woman?" I bit my lip, pretending to ask casually. "An old acquaintance," Alex replied indifferently, his focus already back on his work. "But she drank the soup I made for you." I'm not hungry." "If she drank it, then so be it." Alex didn't even look up, but as if something suddenly came to mind, the corners of his lips lifted slightly. The red marks on my fingers from the hot soup pot throbbed in pain as I clenched my fists tighter. I held back the tears that threatened to spill, knowing better than to ask anything more. In truth, I knew who Victoria was. Recently, she had been all over the news, her wealthy husband's sudden death, the stepsons fighting for control of the family fortune. She was in deep trouble. While the world knew Victoria as the Cinderella who married into wealth, few knew she was also Alex's first love before he became successful. The first time I ever heard the name Victoria was on my wedding night. Alex had been drunk, his eyes bloodshot, and with a roughness I hadn't seen before, he pinned me down, whispering between sobs over and over again in my ear, "Victoria, I hate you." Alex was very busy. So busy that he didn't even notice when I left. My chest felt tight, and I headed to the break room to get some water, only to hear whispers coming from inside. "Lily, was that woman carrying the thermos really President Alex's wife? She's so plain. How did Alex end up with her? He's rich and handsome. You don't understand. This company used to belong to Emily's father." The familiar voice belonged to Alex's secretary, Lily. A few days ago, after Alex hung up on me multiple times, Lily had called me back. She asked if there was something urgent I needed from Alex. When I awkwardly mumbled that I just wanted to ask if he was coming home for dinner, she chuckled lightly, her tone tinged with ridicule. Miss Emily, as the president's wife, I suggest you focus more on your own life. You shouldn't constantly interrupt President Alex with trivial calls while he's handling business. Those harsh words still rang in my ears. And now, she was gossiping about me and Alex again. Let me tell you a secret, Xiaoru. Lily lowered her voice, filled with excitement as if watching a drama unfold. That woman who came today, Victoria, she's President Alex's ex-girlfriend. I heard that back then, Emily used her father's influence to forcefully break them up and make Alex marry her. Over the years, President Alex has treated Emily worse than I treat my dog. I'm telling you, it's just a matter of time before we have a new Mrs. President. No. That's not true. The sound of stifled laughter echoed in the hallway. I wanted to rush in and defend myself, but my feet remained glued to the floor, unable to take another step. As I left Alex's company, the once clear sky broke into a heavy downpour. The security guard who had stopped me earlier now eagerly offered me an umbrella. I shook my head, tightened my grip on the thermos, and walked straight into the rain. The day Alex and I registered our marriage, it rained just as hard. It felt like fate when a gust of wind blew my umbrella away. That was when I saw Alex, standing dazed in the rain, his head hanging low, looking utterly broken. He didn't seem to notice me until I held my umbrella over his head. Emily? Alex turned to me, his face blank with loss. Alex, are you crying? I blurted out as I noticed his reddened eyes. But Alex didn't respond. He just stared at me and gave a smile more pitiful than tears. Then, he suddenly asked, Emily, you like me, don't you? Before I could react, he dropped another bombshell. Let's get married. There was a deep despair in Alex's eyes, like a drowning man who believed I was his only lifeline. So that day, overwhelmed with joy and apprehension, I ended my long one-sided love and became Alex's legal wife. But later, I learned the truth. That day was also the day Victoria got engaged to her husband. Alex had been waiting outside in the rain, hoping his beloved would turn back. But the engagement ceremony ended perfectly, and it was only then that he met me. Unfortunately, I wasn't Alex's salvation. I was merely a stain on his life, one he could never erase. Why aren't the lights on? It was the middle of the night when Alex came home, finding me sitting blankly on the sofa. He seemed to have had a few drinks from some social event, a slight blush coloring his handsome face. He lazily pulled off his tie, looking both sensual and casual, so irresistible that no matter how many years I looked at him, I'd still fall for him instantly. Seeing my dazed expression, Alex's eyes flickered with disdain, but it was quickly replaced by a flicker of desire. Have you showered yet? He asked, inviting me closer. I snapped out of my trance and pushed him away just as he leaned in. Ouch. I couldn't help but gasp at the sharp pain in my palm. Alex's face darkened as I awkwardly explained, sorry, it's my time of the month. I lied to Alex. My period had ended a week ago. I just didn't want him to see the bruises left on my arm after a blood test. With his desire gone, Alex straightened up in disappointment. He never paid much attention to my affairs, so he didn't realize I was lying. I thought the night would pass without any further interaction between us. But then, Alex suddenly grabbed my wrist, and the ugly wound on my palm was exposed to his gaze. He glanced at it and frowned. What happened? It's nothing. I just burned myself while making soup this afternoon. Emily, can stupidity be contagious to your hands too? Alex sighed, exhausted, shaking his head. I really don't know what you're good at. His casual remark stabbed deep into my heart. Before I could react, Alex turned and walked away without sparing me another glance. Give me your hand. I looked up to find Alex back in front of me, holding iodine and cotton swabs. My eyes reddened, and the tears I had held back for so long finally broke free. Alex froze in surprise. Other than the day of my father's funeral, he had never seen me cry like this. For a moment, there was a flicker of panic in his confused gaze. All right, stop crying. With a sigh, he pulled me into a warm embrace, his hand awkwardly patting my back. My heart immediately calmed. Does the wound hurt a lot? Alex asked. I shook my head, and his frown deepened with confusion. Then why are you crying, Emily? For the first time, Alex patiently waited for my response. I wanted to tell him that his sudden tenderness had torn open all my bottled-up grievances. I wanted to tell him that inside the drawer by my bedside was a diagnosis I couldn't face. But I was crying too hard, and all I could do was shake my head and sob silently. Seeing me as a pitiful mess, Alex finally let out a sigh, gripping my wrist gently. All right, Emily, I was in a bad mood earlier, so I spoke harshly. Stop crying. With that, he picked up the cotton swab and dabbed it softly on my palm. The cool sting made me shiver slightly. Does it hurt? Alex paused, then his touch grew even gentler. No. Not really, I whispered, finally calming my sobs. After a moment of hesitation, I couldn't help but ask, why were you in a bad mood? It's work. Even if I told you, you wouldn't understand. Alex's tone grew impatient as he remembered whatever had upset him. I immediately shut my mouth, not daring to ask any more questions. After all, it was rare for Alex to be so gentle with me. No matter how slow or foolish I was, I knew better than to shatter the fleeting happiness of this moment. But eventually, the wounds would be bandaged, and the medicine would run out. All right, Alex's voice sounded just as I dejectedly pulled my hand back. But in the next second, he grabbed me and pulled me onto the sofa. My period. I started, but he cut me off with a laugh. I know. I just want to hold you. Emily, I'm not that much of an animal. The sofa was small, and Alex tightened his arms around me. My back pressed against his warm chest, and I could feel his strong, steady heartbeat. 3 years into our marriage, my husband was still full of life, but I had already been forced into the countdown of my life. I blinked and couldn't help but nuzzle closer to him. His breathing instantly became heavier. Don't move, he murmured, his voice thick with desire. Are you doing this on purpose, Emily? His hand landed lightly on my rear, as if to punish me. But instead of responding, I ruined the mood by asking, Alex, will you get back together with Victoria? The intimacy between us vanished instantly. After a long silence, his cold voice finally came. Emily, I promised your father that I'd never initiate a divorce with you. Alex didn't ask how I knew about him and Victoria, nor did he confront me about pretending not to know when I was in his office earlier that day. Do you love me, Alex? Once again, I impulsively asked, stubbornly seeking an answer. This time, I waited for a long while, but Alex didn't respond. His silence was the last bit of dignity he left me. I used to naively believe that one day I could make Alex fall in love with me. But now, even the heavens seemed to grow tired of my obsession. Alex, if one day I leave you, will you be sad? I finally broke the silence, pretending to ask casually, but inside, my heart twisted painfully, and even breathing hurt. I thought, even if you raise a dog for years, you would develop some feelings for it, right? Leave me? Alex finally responded. He chuckled as if he'd heard a joke and asked, where could you go if you left me? Can you make enough money to support yourself? Emily, your question isn't even worth considering. I blurted out in defiance, I still have the money my dad left me. I could never spend it all in my lifetime. Besides, I won't need the money for long, anyway. Perhaps it was the alcohol, but Alex ignored my quiet murmur. He always looked down on my lack of ambition and incompetence, so he sarcastically said, of course, the spoiled little princess has no higher aspirations. Just don't forget to let me know when you do leave. His warmth left me as Alex stood up coldly, unwilling to engage with me any further. Alex suddenly became incredibly busy. On the rare nights I woke up in the middle of the night, I could hear his low voice coming from the study. Victoria, whenever I caught those words faintly drifting to my ears, I would lie awake staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep for the rest of the night. One morning, Alex actually sat down to have breakfast with me. As I poured him a second bowl of congee, I couldn't hold back any longer and timidly asked, "Alex, are you helping Victoria?" Alex paused while cutting his toast, then looked up at me calmly. "Emily, I'm a businessman. Of course, I want a piece of the pie if there's profit to be made." Alex didn't bother hiding his ambition to expand his business empire. But I knew he was lying. In recent days, several senior members of the company had called me, complaining and hoping I could convince Alex not to act recklessly. It was only then that I understood just how deep and murky the waters of the Yuan family ran. And for once, Alex, who never made losing bets, was risking everything he had for Victoria. 1,000 ants seemed to be gnawing at my heart. I lowered my head and whispered, "I see." A tear suddenly fell into my plate. But Alex didn't notice anything unusual. He finished his breakfast quickly and stood up to leave. Before walking out, he gave me a once-over, frowning with displeasure. "Emily, why do you look so lifeless lately? Tonight is Justin's grandfather's birthday banquet. Make sure you clean yourself up properly. Don't embarrass me again." Justin's grandfather was at the pinnacle of the business circle in Kuan City. Though the banquet was meant to be low-key, many important people were attending. And I feared interacting with people the most. At the event, I nervously clung to Alex, struggling to keep up with his pace. Suddenly, a sweet voice called out, "President Alex." Victoria, wearing a red dress with a deep V-neck, made her entrance, instantly drawing everyone's attention. But she ignored them all, walking straight up to Alex, smiling seductively. "May I have this dance?" "Why?" Alex raised an eyebrow, amused by her question. My body stiffened at once. "President Alex, why ask what you already know?" Victoria teased, tugging playfully on Alex's tie, her smile dripping with flirtation. "After all, the moment you stand here, I can't see anyone else." At that moment, I clearly saw the burning desire in Alex's eyes. My heart raced, and I nervously tightened my grip around his arm. But in the next second, he gently pushed me away. "Victoria, that's quite an honor," Alex said as he stepped forward, took Victoria's hand, and placed a gentlemanly kiss on it. From start to finish, he didn't spare me even a glance. Low murmurs started from all directions, and the gazes that landed on me felt like slaps across my face. I stood frozen, staring at the two of them in the center of the dance floor, moving so in sync, so intimately. Suddenly, I heard a gasp near my ear. "Miss, you're bleeding." Panicked, I covered my nose, but the blood kept dripping onto my white dress, vibrant red like flowers blooming from the life inside me. The whispers around me drowned out the soft music. But Alex in the middle of the dance floor never once looked my way. Nosebleed mixed with tears, sticking messily to my face. I hung my head, frantically rummaging through my bag for tissues. Suddenly, everything went dark. A jacket was placed over my head. "Come with me." A hand grasped mine. I instinctively flinched, but the person only held on tighter. I couldn't see the path ahead, so I let him lead me, slowly moving away from the crowd. When light returned, I finally saw his face. "Dr. Justin?" I gasped. The man before me was the very doctor who had given me my diagnosis not long ago. "Miss Emily, didn't you say you had no family?" Justin raised an eyebrow, immediately calling out the lie I had told him that day. My parents passed away." As for Alex, I twisted my fingers in embarrassment, finding it hard to admit the truth about my sham of a marriage. But Justin seemed to guess what I was thinking. He gave me a reassuring smile, but his words were sharp and ironic. "From what I see, whether you have this husband or not doesn't seem to make much difference. Have you told Alex about your illness?" I shook my head, then looked up at him pleadingly. "Dr. Justin, please, don't tell Alex yet." "And when will you tell him?" "When you're in a coffin." Justin responded with an expressionless face. I hadn't expected such biting words from someone with such a gentle face. My eyes widened, and I stammered for a while, unable to form a response. What I didn't realize at that moment was that my flustered appearance, in Justin's eyes, made me look like a frightened little rabbit. So I also failed to notice the way Justin's dark eyes clouded over and his throat involuntarily moved as he swallowed. Want some candy? Justin suddenly changed the subject, producing a piece of candy out of nowhere. Huh? My mind was too slow to follow his shift in conversation. Seeing my dumbfounded expression, Justin smirked, lifting his hand to pop the candy into my open mouth. The rich taste of milk filled my mouth. Though sweet, it only made the sourness inside me worse, and I couldn't help but let the tears fall. This time, Justin didn't tease me. He just stood quietly by my side until I calmed down. Then, in no rush, he said, "Emily, you missed your follow-up the other day. Patients like you who don't listen need someone to keep an eye on them. So, let's exchange contacts." The casual way he said it made it impossible for me to refuse. After adding each other as friends, I realized I had been outside for nearly 20 minutes. Alex and Victoria's dance should have ended by now, but I hadn't received any messages from Alex. Seeing my sudden dejection, Justin's brow furrowed briefly, then his eyes lit up. "Emily, come with me." Without hesitation, he took my hand again, though this time I felt a bit awkward. It was the second time. Apart from my father and Alex, I had never been this close to another man. Lost in thought, I followed Justin through several turns until we reached a quiet corner of the garden, where a wooden swing stood silently. "Hop on," Justin said with a smile, patting the swing. "When I was a kid, every time I was upset, I'd come here. Swinging would always make my worries disappear." I stared at Justin, realizing for the first time that he had dimples when he smiled. Unlike Alex's sharp, chiseled features, Justin's handsomeness had a softer, more approachable quality. He seemed to have a natural charm, like a prince with a kind of magic that made it hard for anyone to refuse him. "So, Emily, are you still feeling down?" Justin asked as the swing started to move gently. I pressed my lips together and nodded slightly. "And now?" he asked before giving the swing a stronger push. The soft evening breeze swept across my forehead, and when the swing finally reached its highest point, I couldn't help but smile back at him. Once the swing stopped, I was about to step off when Justin gently pressed down on my shoulders. I watched in surprise as he knelt in front of me. He removed my shoes and placed my foot on his bent knee. My heel was swollen and red, with blisters that had already started bleeding. I wasn't sure if it was just my imagination, but I thought I caught a glimpse of pity in Justin's eyes. "I saw you limping at the banquet earlier. No matter how beautiful ill-fitting glass slippers are, they're not worth it. Otherwise, you'll only end up hurting yourself." As Justin spoke, he took out 2 band-aids and carefully applied them to my wounds. My heart felt like it had been squeezed, and my nose began to sting with that familiar ache again. Everything I was wearing today had been arranged by Alex. When I first put on the shoes, I noticed they were half a size too small. But I didn't dare tell Alex, so I endured the pain and tried to keep up with him. Not only did Alex fail to notice my discomfort, but he also impatiently hurried me along a few times. I knew I wasn't misunderstanding Justin's message. But, just like Cinderella's stepsister, who cut off parts of her feet just to fit into the glass slipper, I clung to Alex's side, enduring his indifference and the hurt he caused. As long as I could stay by his side, I would gladly suffer through it. Seeing my eyes redden and my head droop again, Justin sighed softly in exasperation. He opened his mouth, as if about to say something, but was interrupted by a cold voice. "Emily, what are you doing?" I turned toward the voice and saw Alex standing not far away with Victoria. The evening breeze carried a chill, and Victoria pulled Alex's jacket tighter around her shoulders, leaning even closer to him. Their intimate posture made it seem like the two had never been apart these past 3 years. "Emily, aren't you coming?" Alex stared at me, and when his gaze shifted to Justin beside me, his brow furrowed slightly. Startled, I quickly stood up from the swing, forgetting that my foot was still resting on Justin's knee. "Careful." Justin reached out and caught me as I stumbled. My nose brushed against the hollow of his neck, and I could even feel the steady pulse beating beneath his skin. Embarrassed and panicked, I pushed Justin away, not noticing that his body had stiffened under my touch. Without bothering to put my shoes back on, I rushed over to Alex. Emily, how did you end up looking like this? Alex frowned, eyeing me with disdain. Through his eyes, I could clearly see my own reflection, disheveled hair, swollen eyes, and dried blood stains on my chest. Feeling humiliated, I turned my head, only to meet Victoria's mocking gaze. Miss Emily, fancy seeing you again. That jacket you're wearing, whose is it? Victoria asked with feigned innocence, but I could see Alex's face darken even more. I hurried to explain, hoping to tell Alex what had happened, but before I could speak, Justin's voice rang out from behind me. Victoria, why don't you first explain whose jacket you're wearing? Justin casually walked over, holding my shoes in his hand, positioning himself between Victoria and me, blocking her from my view. Then he raised an eyebrow in Alex's direction, his words dripping with meaning. President Alex, no matter how successful your business becomes, don't forget your roots. Alex's expression turned grim in an instant. It had been a long time since anyone dared to blatantly remind him of his past. After standing on top for so long, even Alex had almost forgotten. Once, he was just an orphan who could barely afford to attend school after his parents died in an accident. And Henry Group? 3 years ago, it certainly didn't belong to him. Justin, if you have the time to remind me, maybe you should focus on your own troubles, Alex shot back, his tone becoming equally cutting after being provoked. Not long ago, Justin's grandfather had acknowledged 2 illegitimate children, and the entire social circle had been buzzing with gossip. But Justin seemed unfazed by Alex's jabs and simply turned to me, his voice soft. Emily, don't forget, until next time. With Alex glaring daggers at him, I awkwardly lowered my head, not daring to respond. Since Justin had appeared, Victoria's face had grown increasingly pale. She twirled a lock of hair by her ear, forcing a smile. Justin, you... Victoria, didn't your husband just die? Justin cut her off with a sarcastic smile. So how is it that you still have the energy to attend my father's birthday celebration? With that, he paid no more attention to her blanched face and walked away with a carefree grace. On the way back, I muttered lowly to Alex, explaining the situation. When I repeated once more that Justin had only helped me out of coincidence and that I didn't know he was the second son of the Justin family, Alex finally broke his silence. With a bitter laugh, he said, Emily, are you worried I'll misunderstand your relationship with Justin? I'm not stupid, and Justin's not blind. Lately, I've been competing with the Justin family over a piece of land. You think it's just a coincidence that he stepped in to help you? With a stern face, Alex warned me not to have any more contact with Justin. Listening to Alex's conspiracy theory, I was mentally and physically exhausted. For the first time, I felt the urge to talk back. But the words caught in my throat, and in the end, I swallowed them down. Seeing me nod obediently, Alex's tightly furrowed brows finally relaxed. When we got home, I went straight to the bathroom and scrubbed myself clean. After I came out, Alex said, Why are you so thin? He chuckled softly, whispering teasingly in my ear, Seems like I haven't fed you enough? Ever since my leukemia diagnosis, I had often felt dizzy, had frequent nosebleeds, and had lost quite a bit of weight. I forced a smile and silently reached for the bedside table, but halfway there, Alex grabbed my hand and held it in his palm. Emily, why don't we have a child? My heart sank, and my vision blurred instantly. In fact, Alex and I had once had a child. Shortly after our wedding, I unexpectedly got pregnant. But before I could celebrate, I received the news that my father had died in a car accident. My world collapsed in that moment. I wept every day until, one day, I fainted from grief. When I woke up, I found myself lying in a hospital bed. Alex, don't be too sad. You can always have another child. Alex's friend was trying to comfort him. They had their backs to me and didn't notice that I had opened my eyes. I never really wanted this child in the first place, Alex said, his voice tired. He mentioned the child as if he were finally relieved. I really can't imagine what kind of child someone as foolish as Emily would give birth to. Now that the child's gone, I actually feel a lot better. No one expected Alex to say something like that, and they awkwardly changed the subject. Meanwhile, I lay on the hospital bed, feeling like I had fallen into an icy abyss. The cold, piercing pain spread into every corner of my body. I bit my lip hard, closed my eyes, and silently let the tears fall. For the past 3 years, every time I had been intimate with Alex, I made sure to use protection. I never dared hope to have another child with him. But now, he had told me he wanted to have a baby with me. If I had heard this a month ago, I would have been overjoyed. But now, I was sick, my body could no longer carry new life. Seeing the tears welling up in my eyes, Alex paused in his movements. Does it hurt? I shook my head and wrapped my arms around Alex's neck. Alex, I want to have a daughter with you. Why? Alex's voice was a little breathless, and his grip grew stronger. Because daughters look more like their fathers. Emily, you do have some self-awareness. A soft laugh came from beside my ear. I didn't say anything else and only hugged Alex tighter. Afterward, in a rare moment of tenderness, Alex held me in his arms. At that moment, I had the sudden impulse to confess everything to him. If Alex knew that I was dying, would he be sad, or would he finally feel free? What's wrong? Alex noticed that I wanted to say something but hesitated, and he stared at me suspiciously. I bit my lip, about to speak, but the sudden ringing of a phone interrupted me. Alex glanced impatiently at his phone. When he saw that it was Victoria calling, a flicker of hesitation flashed in his eyes. I lowered my head and quietly moved a little further away from him. His arms were now empty, and Alex seemed momentarily confused. But the ringing urged him on, and he got up. Get some rest, came his indifferent voice. He answered the call and left the room without looking back. I got out of bed and took a pill. After all, my body wasn't fit to have children. After some thought, I opened my phone and sent a message to Justin. Dr. Justin, can I come in for a follow-up next Friday? Looks like you finally listened to me, realizing you need to take your health seriously. Justin replied quickly, as if he had been waiting for my message. I awkwardly typed back. Yes. I want to have a baby with Alex, so I need to work hard to get better. But Justin was probably busy, and he didn't respond again. Lying in bed, I forced myself not to think about Alex and Victoria's relationship. I only knew that Alex had promised never to leave me in this lifetime. Now, he was even willing to have a baby with me. That was enough. I couldn't be too greedy. But why, then, did my heart ache uncontrollably? In the past few days, Alex seemed to be dealing with something difficult and had set aside our plans to have a baby. I was relieved. Constantly taking pills afterward was too hard on my body. But just as I was preparing for the tough fight against leukemia, an unexpected visitor shattered the false peace between me and Alex. On Tuesday evening, the sky suddenly turned gray, and a heavy rainstorm started pouring down. Alex, for once, was at home, having dinner with me. The soup is good, Emily. Hearing Alex's compliment, I couldn't stop the smile spreading across my face. I grinned foolishly. I was relieved. Constantly taking pills afterward was too hard on my body. But just as I was preparing for the tough fight against leukemia, and standing there, drenched from head to toe, was Victoria. Her cheeks were flushed, and the smell of alcohol hit me in the face. Move. Where's Alex? She rudely pushed me aside and, spotting Alex, took a deep breath and walked straight toward him. Alex, why did you suddenly pull out your investment? Alex stood up and reached out to steady the swaying Victoria. He pressed his lips together, his brows furrowing deeply. Victoria, you're drunk. I'll explain tomorrow. I had a feeling I knew what Victoria was questioning him about. There were things I couldn't convince Alex to do, but the company's senior board members wouldn't sit idly by. Victoria was clearly very drunk. She stared at Alex for a long time, then let out a cold laugh. Then, right in front of me, she peeled off her wet dress, revealing her perfect curves to the air. Victoria wrapped herself seductively around Alex's neck, blowing lightly in his ear. Alex, I admit it. 3 years, you've won. And now, I am your trophy. Alex's eyes darkened, and his grip on Victoria's shoulder tightened. He didn't hug her back, but he also didn't push her away. Until Victoria's crimson lips pressed against his. What are you doing? I shouted, unable to suppress my anger any longer. I rushed forward and pulled Victoria away. She stumbled but ignored me, reaching for Alex again. Get out! Get out! My eyes were red with rage, and I kept shoving her. The situation became chaotic, until finally, Alex's irritated voice broke through. Stop it. Victoria immediately froze, but I, caught by inertia, slapped her across the face. My fingernails scratched her pale cheek, leaving a mark. She turned her head, tears of restraint welling in her eyes. Emily, didn't you hear me tell you to stop? Alex's voice was full of anger. I looked up at him, dazed, trying to explain, but before I could say anything, he shoved me hard to the floor. My knee hit the tile with a thud, and the sharp pain left me kneeling, unable to get up for a long time. Alex picked up the jacket draped over the chair and placed it around Victoria. Let's go upstairs and talk, he said, his voice low and laced with tenderness. The next moment, Alex scooped Victoria into his arms like a princess. Her head rested against his chest, and I clearly saw the smug smile on her lips. Fury surged again, and I struggled to my feet, limping toward Alex. Alex, you can't take her upstairs. For the first time, I said no to Alex, biting my lip as I spoke. Emily, I'm just taking Victoria upstairs to rest. Alex glanced down at me, coldly explaining. He started walking again, but I stretched out my arms and shook my head firmly. Alex, this is my home. You can't. I wanted to remind him of his promise to never bring strangers into our home when I was too afraid to be around people. But when Alex heard me say my home, his expression darkened. Your home? Emily, if it weren't for me, with that foolish brain of yours, your relatives would have torn this house apart the day after your father died. Seeing my shocked expression, Alex sneered and asked, so, who do you think you owe for the life you're living in your little greenhouse, playing the part of a pampered wife? My mind went blank. I stood there, dumbfounded, my fingers lightly brushing Alex's sleeve. Alex. As soon as I spoke, the tears began to flow uncontrollably. Alex hesitated for a moment, but when Victoria weakly called out that she didn't feel well, he tightened his grip on her and, without another moment's hesitation, carried her up the stairs. Lightning ripped through the silent night, and the rumbling in my ears drowned out all sound. I stared around blankly, everything in the house suddenly looking twisted and unfamiliar. A wave of overwhelming fear rose from the depths of my heart. If this is no longer my home, then where else can I go? The rain was heavy, so much that I could no longer see the road ahead clearly. I had no idea where I was, nor did I know where I should go. I wandered through the rain, like a soulless body. Until a pair of familiar, warm hands pulled me tightly into an embrace. Emily, what are you doing? Are you trying to get yourself killed? Anger was laced with deep concern in the voice. Justin? I looked at the person in front of me, dazed, and then everything went black as I passed out. When I woke up again, I touched the dry pajamas on my body, feeling disoriented for a moment. The housekeeper changed your clothes. Justin's calm voice came from the side of the bed. Emily, tomorrow is your checkup. What were you thinking tonight? He looked at me with an expressionless face, making me embarrassed enough to lower my head. The humiliating scenes replayed in my mind. Justin pieced together what happened tonight after asking a few questions. So, you were kicked out of your own house? His deep voice was filled with a barely controlled rage. I shivered and quickly shook my head. I left on my own. Emily, Justin sighed, his gaze complicated as he looked at me. Has Alex bewitched you? How can you be so devoted to him? Maybe it was the blow from tonight's events. Under Justin's scrutinizing gaze, I suddenly felt a strong urge to confide. The corner of the blanket crumpled in my hands as I nervously clutched it. After a brief silence, I shook my head and began to speak slowly. Alex didn't cast a spell on me. He saved my life. When I was born, my mom died in childbirth. As a child, my dad was always busy with work and didn't know that the housemaid often bullied and abused me. By the time he found out, I had already been so frightened that I became extremely averse to human interaction. In high school, being both dumb and introverted, I naturally became the target of bullying by some bad girls. I ended up with severe depression and anxiety. One day, I cut my wrists at home but was caught by Alex, who had unexpectedly returned. At that time, Alex had just been admitted to the best university in the country after receiving 10 years of financial support from my father. My father asked him to tutor me at home, but Alex always wore a cold expression, and I didn't dare to talk to him much. But that day, when he held me tightly and ran to the hospital, I realized for the first time how warm someone's embrace could be. Later, Alex stepped in and resolved my troubles at school. "Emily, you're the most pathetic rich girl I've ever met," he said, ruffling my hair with his warm hand. "If anyone bullies you again, let me know." Sunlight bathed his chiseled face, and in that moment, I was utterly captivated. I buried this admiration deep in my heart. Until one day, while Alex was napping with his eyes closed, I impulsively kissed him. When he woke up, Alex stared at me for a long time. Before leaving, he suddenly turned and asked, "Emily, what do girls usually like? My girlfriend's birthday is coming up. Can you help me pick something?" Alex had noticed the kiss, and his indirect rejection of my feelings was unmistakable. I don't even remember how I said goodbye to him that day. All I remember is that night, I buried my head in the pillow and cried the whole night. "So, you really broke up Alex and Victoria and forced him to marry you?" Justin frowned as he listened to my story, scrutinizing me. "No." I shook my head, feeling a pang in my heart as I recalled that day. "It was Victoria who broke up with Alex. So, on the day she got engaged, Alex asked me to marry him." Justin's eyes widened in surprise before he sighed in disappointment. "Emily, Alex doesn't love you. Why are you betting your whole future on him? You're the most foolish woman I've ever met." I had told Justin all this hoping he would scold some sense into me. But when he pointed out the truth so bluntly, I couldn't stop the tears from falling. "All right, stop crying," Justin said, his voice softening. After hesitating for a moment, he cupped my chin with one hand, and my eyes met his gentle gaze. "Emily, the person who cares about you will never make you cry. The one who doesn't care, no matter how much you cry, it won't matter." His soft fingertips gently wiped the tears from my cheeks. "So, don't cry in front of Alex anymore. And don't cry in front of me either. It makes my heart ache." My phone didn't ring the entire night. The next day, Justin drove me home. "Justin, thank you, and about the lawyer, I'll leave that to you," I said sincerely, avoiding Justin's gaze. Last night, after Justin said he cared about me, even with my slow reactions, I could feel the tension in the air. I feigned a headache and lay down, but my heart raced all night. I had no family, no friends, and only a few people who could help me. So, I could only pretend to be oblivious to deal with this sudden affection. "Emily, give me a call when you're done packing," Justin said before leaving for the hospital. I was secretly relieved. After being away for a night, the house felt even more unfamiliar. Alex and Victoria weren't home. The bed was neatly made. I took a deep breath and started packing my things. This house was a wedding gift from my father when Alex and I got married. After 3 years, I realized that everything I truly wanted to take with me could fit into a single suitcase. I paused when I heard the door open, followed by footsteps approaching. "Emily, what are you doing?" Alex stood in the doorway, his voice tinged with confusion and perhaps a hint of regret. I didn't look up, nor did I stop packing. "Alex, I'm moving out." "Where are you going?" I didn't know where I was going either, so I kept silent, closing my lips. After a long pause, a sigh broke the quiet. "Emily," Alex knelt down, placing his hand on my shoulder, his tone softening. "Last night, I A sharp slap interrupted his words. My hand was red from the impact, and Alex stared at me in shock, as if he couldn't believe I had just hit him. Alex, I don't want to talk about last night anymore. I took a step back, raising my hands in front of me and summoning the courage to meet Alex's gaze. My eyes, for the first time, were filled with a calm that had never been there before. Also, don't touch me again. I feel disgusted. Are you crazy, Emily? Alex's face darkened instantly. Nothing happened between Victoria and me last night. Why are you throwing a tantrum? Yeah. I am sick, I murmured, ignoring the rest of his questions. Silence settled in the air once again, and I could hear Alex's heavy breathing, full of restrained anger. After a long time, a cold snort broke the stillness. Alex stormed into the study and slammed the door shut. I rubbed my reddened eyes and went back to packing the last of my belongings. 20 minutes later, I found myself standing outside the study, hesitating before knocking on the door. 5 years of unrequited love and 3 years of marriage. It was time to say goodbye to Alex. Still not gone? Alex opened the door, glancing disdainfully at my suitcase. Alex, you once said to let you know when I decided to leave you. I forced a smile, trying to maintain some dignity. I've already consulted a lawyer about the divorce. You won't have to wait too long. Alex, I'm leaving. Goodbye. With every word, Alex's expression grew darker. He said nothing, just pursed his lips and stared at me. I silently wheeled my suitcase to the staircase, about to descend when a strong force suddenly grabbed my arm. I watched helplessly as the suitcase tumbled down the stairs, spilling its contents everywhere. Emily, haven't you had enough? Alex's deep voice was filled with rage. Divorce, running away. Are you really trying to put on the whole dramatic show? Crying, making a scene, threatening your life? Alex, let go of me. Years of pent-up frustration turned into a surge of resentment. I raised my head, and the tears I had held back all day burst out. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I'm just tired, really tired. So, please, I beg you, let me go. Seeing my sudden breakdown, Alex froze, his anger vanishing as he opened his mouth to say something. But then his eyes widened in shock. Emily, your warm liquid dripped from my nose onto Alex's hand. As if burned, he immediately pulled away. Taking advantage of the moment, I rushed into the bathroom, but the blood was flowing so fast that it quickly stained the sink red. Emily, what's happening to you? Alex stood at the bathroom door, his usually cold voice trembling. Alex, in the second drawer of the nightstand, there's my diagnosis. You were right, I really am sick. A wave of exhaustion washed over me, unlike anything I'd felt before. For the first time, I didn't want to say another word to Alex. I wiped my face emotionlessly and brushed past him. Downstairs, the mess from the suitcase was scattered everywhere. I knelt down and slowly began to pack the things back in. Alex, meanwhile, walked silently into the bedroom. When he came back out, he was clutching the diagnosis in his hand. Leukemia, mid-stage. He must have known what that meant. His heavy footsteps approached, and Alex stood in front of me, but I didn't look up at him. Then, a pair of trembling hands pulled me into an embrace. Alex held me so tightly, as if I would disappear the moment he let go. Emily. Emily. His strained voice was filled with a sob, and the warm tears on my neck made me shiver. This was the third time I had seen Alex cry. The first was when we registered for our marriage, and the second was on our wedding night. I never imagined there would be a day when Alex would cry for me. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm so sorry. Alex's eyes were red, his face full of pain and regret. I didn't know. I didn't know that day when you called me so many times, it was to tell me you were sick. In our 3 years of marriage, I had never interrupted Alex when he was working. But on the day of my diagnosis, I was overwhelmed and instinctively called him again and again. Each time, my call was ruthlessly declined. That day, it was his assistant, Ms. Lee, who finally called me back. I couldn't bring myself to tell her about my illness, so I lied, only to be met with scorn. From then on, Alex never asked me another question. His repeated "I'm sorry" echoed in my ears. Alex looked so heartbroken, as if he hadn't been the one who had neglected and hurt me for the past 3 years. Suddenly, I remembered what Justin had once told me, only someone who loves you will be pained by your tears. I used to feel heartache whenever I saw Alex cry over Victoria. But now, as he cried for me, my heart felt nothing but numbness. Alex refused to let me leave, and he started calling every doctor he knew. "Emily, don't be scared. I'll find the best doctor to cure you. Please, don't leave me." He caressed my cheek tenderly, his affection so convincing that, for a moment, I almost believed he truly loved me. Silently, I turned away and sent a message to Justin under the pretense of going to the bathroom. "Justin, Alex knows about my illness now, and he's here at home. Can you figure out a way to distract him?" I didn't want to stay with Alex any longer, but I knew I couldn't leave on my own. Half an hour later, I pretended to be asleep in bed while Alex received an urgent phone call. As the sound of his car engine faded into the distance, I quickly grabbed my suitcase and opened the door, only to find someone standing in my way. "Justin, why are you here?" I felt awkward. After all, I just wanted Justin to help me distract Alex. I didn't expect to actually see him. "Emily, how far do you think you can run on your own?" "At most, Alex will find you within half a day. And after this, he'll be even more vigilant, and you won't get another chance like today." Then what should I do? Panic filled me as I listened to Justin's calm analysis, too rattled to notice the satisfied smirk tugging at his lips. "So, you come with me. I promise Alex won't find you. Besides, I'm still your attending doctor. If you want to get better, you can't get rid of me." I knew Justin was right. But ever since I realized his feelings for me, I'd been trying to distance myself from him. I lowered my head and pulled a bank card from my wallet. "Justin, you've done so much for me. I really don't know how to thank you. There's 50 million on this card, why don't you take it?" Before my father passed away, he had left me a considerable amount of money. This was the only thing I had to offer. Justin stared at me, expressionless, for a long time without moving. Was it not enough? Just as I was about to offer more, Justin finally took the card from my hand and lightly tapped it against my forehead. "All right, Emily. I'll take the card. Now, are you ready to go?" Justin took me to Jinggang, over 1,000 kilometers away from a city. I checked into a hospital and began my treatment, with Justin as my doctor once again. After each round of chemotherapy, Justin would hold my hand and ask if it hurt, his face full of tender concern that often left me momentarily stunned. Could it be that someone would actually cherish me this much? Maybe it was the unbearable torment of the illness, or perhaps it was the comfort of always waking up to that familiar figure. Gradually, I stopped resisting Justin's presence, even growing more dependent on him. "Emily, come try this. Have I improved my cooking?" For months later, after Justin once again made me soup, I lowered my head as the tears I had held back fell into the bowl. "Justin, why are you so good to me? I'm not worth it, really, I'm not." Seeing my tears, Justin's expression shifted from concern to frustration. He pulled me into his arms, half angry and half heartbroken. "Emily, whether you're worth it or not isn't for you to decide. Can you please stop underestimating yourself?" Tears soaked Justin's shirt, and I awkwardly tried to pull away, but he only held me tighter. His heartbeat echoed in my ears, each thump resonating deep within me. In that moment, I couldn't help but wrap my arms around Justin's waist. We both trembled at the warmth of each other's touch. When I hesitated, trying to pull away again, Justin's eyes darkened. In the next second, he gently but firmly placed my hand back on his waist. "Emily, if you're bold enough to hold me, you can't just back out now." I wasn't. My face flushed instantly as I fumbled for words, while Justin laughed, unable to contain his amusement. In the 6th month of our time in Jinggang, fortune finally smiled on me. That day, Justin told me they had found a matching bone marrow donor. We both teared up, locking eyes. Justin wouldn't be performing the surgery himself this time, as it's common for doctors not to operate on their own loved ones. As the surgery drew nearer, Justin seemed even more anxious than I was. Emily, the hospital director, always jokes that I'm the steadiest hand in the operating room, Justin said, wrapping his arms around me from behind. He let out a bitter laugh, resting his head gently on my shoulder. I used to be confused about my inability to empathize with the families of my patients, but now that you're facing this life or death test, I finally understand the fear of losing someone. Despite being a doctor, Justin had somehow listened to someone's advice and brought back a protective charm for me. He hung it around my neck with a sincere expression, and I could faintly see the marks on his forehead where he had bowed in prayer. I fought back tears and cupped his face, kissing him for the first time. Bema Temple in Jingang is quite famous. Back when Alex was dealing with misfortune, I had flown there overnight, kowtowing with every step, to get him a protective charm. Emily, these things are nonsense. You're the only one who would believe in them, Alex had scoffed at me then. The charm eventually disappeared, and I never found out what happened to it. Now, years later, a similar charm had been placed in my hands again, but this time by someone who truly valued me. Reflecting on the past 6 months since leaving Alex, I realized how my feelings had shifted. Initially, the thought of him made my heart ache unbearably, but now, I could bring him up with the same detachment I would use for a stranger. Justin, could I ask you to tell Alex where I am? The smile on Justin's face, brought by my earlier kiss, vanished in an instant. He gave me a look filled with hurt, as if I were betraying him. I chuckled, quickly grabbing the divorce papers from my drawer and holding them up. Don't get the wrong idea, Justin. I just want to end things with him once and for all. Over the past 6 months, Alex's life had taken a turn for the worse. After I left, he abruptly ended all collaboration with Victoria for reasons unknown. Furious, Victoria seduced her own stepson, delivering a brutal blow to Alex. To make matters worse, an anonymous source online exposed the complicated love-hate triangle between Alex, Victoria, and me. Netizens uncovered every sordid detail that had transpired over the years, sparking public outrage. Headlines like "Alex, you're a coward," and "Emily, the victim of Alex's betrayal," dominated social media, with hashtags like #PoorEmily and #AlexGoToHell trending for days. Victoria was labeled a homewrecker, and sarcastic comments like, "May you marry someone like Alex," became viral catchphrases. All this negativity caused a nosedive in Henry Group's stock price. The board of directors finally had enough and voted to remove Alex from his position as CEO. But Alex didn't seem to care about any of this. Justin told me that during these 6 months, Alex had been frantically searching for me. Opportunists preyed on his desperation, offering fake leads about my whereabouts, forcing Alex to beg for information. He endured countless humiliations in his quest to find me. When I saw Alex again, I was stunned. The person before me looked more like a terminally ill patient than I did. The moment he laid eyes on me, his eyes reddened with tears. "Emily." His voice, hoarse and filled with fragility, carried the weight of someone who had lost everything. Alex walked to my bedside and knelt down without hesitation. "Emily. Emily." He grasped my hand, pressing it to his tear-streaked face, kissing it over and over. "What are you doing?" I was startled by his actions and tried to pull my hand away, but he clutched it tighter. "Alex, let go." I was both furious and anxious, raising my hand to slap him across the face. The slap wasn't hard, but it left him momentarily stunned. I quickly grabbed the divorce papers I had prepared and threw them at him. "Alex, I'm having surgery tomorrow. The doctors say I only have a 50% chance of survival. I don't want to die with your name still engraved on my tombstone. So please, let's get a divorce." "No, no, Emily, you'll be fine." Alex, panicking at my mention of death, reached out to hold me again, but stopped short when his eyes caught something on my right hand. "Emily, what's this?" He stared intently at my right ring finger, where a small ring was drawn. It was the same ring Justin had lovingly drawn on with a marker that morning. "Emily, once you have this on, you're mine," Justin had teased. Since all jewelry had to be removed before surgery, this little gesture had helped calm my nerves. But now, it was Alex who had noticed. His eyes, filled with despair, searched my face for an answer, but I gave him none. His complexion turned ashen, his once confident demeanor now shattered. "Emily, I won't let you go. Even if you die, you'll die by my side." Ignoring my protests, Alex pulled me into a tight embrace, whispering apologies and declarations of love in my ear. This was the first time Alex had ever said, "I love you." In the past, I would have done anything to hear those 3 words, even if it meant suffering endlessly. But now, hearing them only filled me with exhaustion and weariness. "Alex, please, just let me go." Blood began to trickle from my nose, staining the divorce papers in front of us. I looked at Alex with an expression of cold determination, a look he had never seen from me before. "Even if it means dying right now, I don't want to keep getting tangled up with you. So please, give me my freedom." Alex, filled with grief, shook his head and let out a guttural cry of pain. In the end, his trembling hand signed the papers. He collapsed to the ground, covering his face as he wept. I dreamed for a long time that night. In my dreams, I saw my father, Alex, and Victoria. The dream was painful, so much so that I didn't want to wake up. But a pair of warm hands gently wrapped around me. "Emily, it's me." I slowly opened my eyes, meeting Justin's tear-filled gaze. "Emily, the surgery was a success." Justin's voice trembled, and a tear fell onto my face. My heart softened as I reached up to poke his dimple. "Justin, what do you want to do next?" Justin took my hand, kissing it tenderly as he looked at me with anticipation. "I think I want to study for college." I blushed at my confession. Back in high school, I hadn't been able to pass the entrance exams, and even though Alex had tried to tutor me for a while, it wasn't enough. My father had planned to send me abroad, but I married Alex before that could happen. After my father passed away, I never got another chance to study. Hearing this, Justin seemed momentarily stunned. I grew embarrassed, fearing he would look down on me, but instead, he let out a small, defeated laugh. "You little troublemaker. Fine, fine. What's a few more years?" "I can wait," he said with a sigh, before leaning down to kiss me. Outside, the sun shone brightly. I realized that at 23, my life was just beginning. Justin's side story: the first time I saw Emily was at her wedding with Alex. It was a classic rags to riches tale, the wealthy heiress marrying the poor guy, straight out of a book and into reality. Everyone was there with a sense of curiosity, and I was no exception. My parents were involved in a business marriage, each having their own affairs, and I could even greet these people with a smile. I never believed in love. But that day, I met Emily. Throughout the entire wedding, her eyes never left Alex. Those were eyes that truly loved. When that deep affection spilled over, my heart trembled unexpectedly. Unfortunately, that love wasn't for me. I have to admit, at that moment, I felt a twinge of envy towards Alex. I thought Emily and I would never cross paths again. But 3 years later, when Emily sat down in front of me, I recognized her at once. Those eyes that once made my heart flutter were now filled with unshakable sadness. She was alone. When I tentatively asked her about her relatives, she awkwardly lowered her head and said, I have no family." She lied. Just a few days ago, I attended the same party as Alex. It seemed Alex hadn't treated her well. At that moment, along with pity, I felt some unfamiliar emotions stirring within me. Soon after, at my father's birthday banquet, when I saw firsthand how Alex embarrassed her, I could no longer control my feelings. I took off my coat and draped it over her shoulders. Alex's side story: the first thing Emily did after her surgery was to go with me to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get a divorce. Justin stayed between us the entire time, giving me no chance to plead for her to stay. Of course, I knew that even if I begged Emily on my knees, she wouldn't change her mind. Despite being a person who seemed weak, when Emily made up her mind, she was resolute and determined. Just like when I proposed to her suddenly, she didn't hesitate. She went home, grabbed the household registration book, and returned to me. At that time, I had nothing, and she had everything I desired. Later, with Emily's help, I gained wealth and power, and finally, those who once looked down on me began to fawn over me. I enjoyed Emily's sacrificial love, but at the same time, I scorned her naivety and lack of ambition. I arrogantly believed Emily would never leave me, but I forgot that even the deepest love can eventually wane. That day, after leaving the Civil Affairs Bureau, Emily smiled at me and said, "Goodbye," then turned to take Justin's arm. It was the first time I saw Emily's back receding from me, while my own back had been watched by her for 3 years. In that moment, I could no longer contain my sadness and collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. I finally understood my feelings for Emily, but I had lost her forever. It turned out I was the biggest fool in the world. After choosing to leave with nothing, the Yuan family no longer had any reservations. It wasn't long before I lost my legs in a deliberately staged car accident. Without money and power, I was still nothing. I became a disabled person, confined to a wheelchair for the rest of my life. 4 years later, Emily graduated from university and, as an outstanding student representative, gave a speech. She looked so bright and confident, a stark contrast to how she was when she was with me. Justin went on stage, presented Emily with flowers, and then knelt on one knee to propose in front of everyone. They embraced and kissed tightly amidst a sea of congratulations. In the sunlight, Emily's eyes sparkled with tears. Those were still the loving eyes, but they would never look at me again. I hid in the shadows, torturing myself by watching their happiness, and finally, left the venue in despair, sitting in my wheelchair. I think, in the end, heaven is fair. And people like me are destined for a bad ending.